Welcome back and welcome to another movie reviews video. I make movie reviews here every Sunday on this channel. They are always spoiler free and I leave timestamps in the description box below in case there is a particular movie you want to scroll to hear my thoughts on. I will also leave last week's movie reviews linked up here in case I talked about something that you are considering seeing this week. I saw several movies in cinemas this week. I saw 3 that were new to me, 2 that were repeat viewings, and then I saw the Oscar nominated shorts. The shorts I am going to talk about in my Oscars week videos next week, so you'll have to wait to hear about them. I'll talk about them in a whole video, the animated, the live action and the documentary shorts. And I will talk briefly about my rewatches this week, but again, they will be talked about a little bit more in my Oscars week video. And next Sunday won't be a movie reviews video, but it will be an Oscars nominated pictures video. So you've got that to look forward to. You're going to want to subscribe. The first new movie I saw in cinemas this week was Just Mercy, which I only found out literally as I was sitting waiting for the movie to come on. It's based on a book, so I would have read the book first. But then I think it might have taken away the joy of the movie because the movie is based on a real story. And if I'd read the book and found out what happened, I wouldn't have been sort of on the edge of my seat waiting to see what happened in the movie. If you enjoyed The Green Mile, you will definitely enjoy this movie. It had lots of feelings of The Green Mile about it. And obviously that is also based on a book about people who are on death row are they in Alabama as well? I feel like they're in the South somewhere. But this is set in Alabama, based around people who are on death row, and stars Jamie Foxx and Michael B. Jordan, who was just fantastic. And the two of them don't have a lot of screen time together, but when they did, you could see this like buzzy chemistry coming off them, which was great. The movie also has Brie Larson in it, and she is fantastic. She plays this kind of firecracker of a woman who just wants everything to go her way and to go right, but when it doesn't, she's like, well, we'll dust ourselves off and we'll, you know, carry on because this is going to happen. And I think that she played a very good antidote to the kind of like negative feeling, dark aspect of death row and what was going on with these prisoners that Michael B. Jordan was defending. And the whole movie is, like I say, obviously based on a true story. So if you've read the book, you know what happens. I did not know what was going to happen, and I was kind of on the edge of my seat the whole time, not knowing what was going to go on, not knowing what was coming next, kind of holding my breath when verdicts were announced or when timelines were tight. And it was really, really interesting. And it's interesting that this lawyer has come down from Delaware and was educated at Harvard Law School, and the kind of stigma around the fact that he's come from up there down to Alabama. And a lot of people are like, well, you know, I'm not dealing with him because he just thinks he's better than us. And kind of shows off that divide that exists within one country, and the fact that, you know, he's come to this other state. Why has he come to this other state? And for, you know, a lot of the people around the people in the film, this was such a big deal, and that's, you know, an eye-opener for somebody like me that doesn't know about this divide and hasn't witnessed this divide. And it was just an excellent film. I think it would definitely stand up to a rewatch. Does it have to be seen in the cinema? Not necessarily. It wasn't like there was an amazing soundtrack or, you know, big things happening on the screen, but, you know, if you want to see it now before everybody else starts talking about it, I highly recommend it. I think it was just a wonderful film, and I just thought it was beautiful and it was powerful, and it had hope as well, which was nice, because so many of these films end with something horrible happening, but this film, you know, however it ended, there was just, throughout it, there was hope. And I think Brie Larson's character brought a lot of that as well. And I really enjoyed watching them all on screen together and watching the story play out, and I really recommend it. It was a good time. Then straight after that, I watched The Gentleman, which was recommended in last week's movie reviews comments. So I was like, right, okay, I'll go and get myself a ticket to see that. So I did, and it's a Guy Ritchie film. I'm not normally a massive fan of a Guy Ritchie film, but it was nice to see something completely different. It's very much out of my comfort zone when it comes to movie watching, and the trailers had looked funny, and the people attached to it are all, you know, people I enjoy watching on the screen. So I was interested to see it because of those reasons. And then when it was recommended to me, I was like, right, okay, I'll go off and see this. So it was very funny. There were some very, very funny points. It's not like Hugh Grant to kind of play the funny man. He is normally the straight man. And then we had Matthew McConaughey, who kind of flips between being the funny man and being the straight man. And he's this incredibly charming guy. But, you know that if something were to go wrong and you were the person that had done the wrong thing, then, you know, he would be coming for you, and you probably wouldn't see it coming. It's quite a complex storyline. It kind of jumps back and forwards a little bit, and there's some aspects of like double crossing going on, as usual with this kind of film, where there's a lot of kind of not gangs but associates involved. There are a lot of names to remember, and that's something I sometimes struggle with, but I think because we're jumping back and forwards, it kind of gave you time to get used to a name before you had to know how they impacted on the story, which I think is a good thing. And Hugh Grant's character is a kind of hack journalist, member of the paparazzi, and so he kind of is explaining and almost narrating things as we go through. I thought Matthew McConaughey was really good in this film. I thought he did an excellent job kind of playing an American who's been in the UK for a while, so he's still got American values, but he's still got, like, he's part of UK society as well, so he's got the kind of both worlds going on, and I know about that, not as a member of some sort of gang or, you know, a person who has massive drug farms. Yeah, there were a lot of big names in this film who have quite small parts, so you can tell that it was obviously, there was a lot of excitement around this, because otherwise these big names wouldn't have taken these smaller parts. And then Charlie Hunnam, I had literally not come across before, but he was really interesting to watch, and played his character kind of very quietly and in a very measured way, which, you know, the character called for, but he was really interesting to see on screen because I hadn't kind of come across him before, and I enjoyed his performance as well. Overall, there's a lot of violence and a lot of swearing, and, you know, if you're not into Guy Ritchie films normally, you know, it's kind of typical of his films, aside from, was it the new Aladdin that he produced? One of the new Disney films? Yeah, you know, they are violent films, and there's a lot of violence in here, violence which you might think is unnecessary, but it's all part of the storyline. If you don't like a lot of swearing, then you won't like this film. I'm fine with a lot of swearing, and there's some very funny points. Yeah, it was a good time. It was entertaining, and I think I enjoyed it because it's so different from what I normally watch. I think that's one of the reasons that I enjoyed it so much. And there is some interesting kind of cinematography and kind of effects which do benefit from seeing it on the big screen. So if you are considering seeing this one, and you're considering it being your cinema watch for the week, then I recommend it. The third new film that I saw in cinemas this week was the new Les Miserables, which is nominated for in the Best International Film category, or Best Foreign Film category, and is set in France, and is set in the town where Victor Hugo wrote and based his original book Les Miserables. Basically, the film is not a retelling of the story that we know that is, you know, on the stage in the West End and was that big hit film with all those people in it, which I'm not a massive fan of. I enjoy the music, I'm not a big fan of the storyline. However, the film, the people who made the film said basically what they wanted to do was they wanted to kind of take the essence of his book, of how kind of awful it was for people in that area at the time, and show that actually in that town nothing has really changed, and it's still not a very nice place to be, and it's still very corrupt, and the police are still very much not as they should be. The majority of the film takes place over one day, and the very end of the film takes place the next day, so it is a very intense film. And as I was leaving the cinema, I heard two separate groups of people say, oh, well, that was intense. So it is a very intense film. There is a lot of swearing, there is a lot of violence, there is a lot of horrible things that happen that shouldn't be happening, that will be question your belief in humanity. It is not a nice film to watch. However, I think, you know, it does represent that town and that area and the corruption in that area very well, and the corruption that probably mirrored in several other places at any one time throughout the world. Yeah, it wasn't a pleasant film to watch. I left feeling quite like drained and quite down about the state of society. However, I think that they not remade, but they made a film with the same title as the book for a reason, and I think they have kind of achieved what they set out to achieve when they remade the film. Because the film's so intense and because it takes place over such a short space of time, I can't really talk about the plot an awful lot in case you want to see it, because it would be spoilery. But it's basically a new cop joining these other two cops, and they go off on their first day on the road, and stuff happens. And then we revisit them the next day after all that stuff has happened, and more stuff happens. And it's left very open-ended, and I think it was left very open-ended for a reason. And then the other two films I saw in cinemas this week, aside from the Oscar-nominated shorts, were both rewatches, and I will talk about them in my Oscar-nominated pictures video next Sunday, and that was Ford versus Ferrari and Little Women, which I just want to share with you. Both really stood up to a rewatch. I'd wanted to rewatch both of them anyway, but this year, as I always do, I got the Regal Best Pictures Film Pass, which lets you see all the nominated Best Pictures aside from the two that are on Netflix. And last year it didn't include the one that was on Netflix, and so I will be rewatching all the Best Picture nominated films, so I can come back here and talk with you about them next week. But I really enjoyed both these films and seeing them again, and I already have tickets to see Little Women again. Having watched a few interviews and kind of YouTube videos and things like that with Greta Gerwig, and her talking about the directorial and the editing and the cinematography choices that were made throughout filming the film, the fact that we have the golden time of childhood with this like golden hue to it all the time, and then the kind of present day storyline with the kind of more blue, darker hue, and then we have the fact that each of the four characters had their own colour. Like, those choices were very clear when you know about them, having, you know, rewatched the film, and I just so enjoyed again seeing this story about the relationship between Joe and Amy, because I think that other films haven't necessarily focused on that. They've given each of the four Little Women kind of screen time, and I think that the fact that we have such a focus on Joe and a focus on Amy and a focus on their relationship, and the fact that each of them feels like they are the lesser sister to the other one, I really enjoyed seeing that dynamic play out. And, you know, Saoirse Ronan and Florence Pugh just like do that so well. It's the little like head movements and the little expressions between the two of them. I just think it's awesome, and I can see why they are the ones who have been nominated for acting Oscars for this film. And then Ford versus Ferrari, the first time I saw it in the cinema, I saw it in a Dolby screen, and so the sound was like stunning. It was amazing. You got, you know, all the like engines and the cars and the noise of the racetracks kind of around you. And I have to say that seeing it in just a regular screen, the sound did still stand out. And so again, it's been nominated for sound editing and sound mixing Oscars, and I can really see why. The sound in it, the fact that the sound stood up in just a regular screen as well as in a Dolby screen, I'm glad that I saw it in both so I could do the comparison. But the sound was just stunning. And then again, that chemistry between Christian Bale and Matt Damon, like, why were they not nominated for acting Oscars? I know there's only so many spaces, but you know how I feel about those actors that have been nominated from The Irishman. Like, those places could have gone to these guys. Just saying. But yeah, both stood up really well to a rewatch. So if you are considering seeing them whilst they're still in the cinemas, go for it. Highly recommend both of those. So as I say, I will be back with my Oscars nominated films videos next week. I'm not doing 7 this year, I'm only doing 5 because I have other things I want to talk to you about in the bookish world. And so I'll be back with those videos next week. So you're going to want to subscribe to make sure those land in your subscription feed. Let me know in the comments if you are excited about the Oscars, or if there are any films in the cinemas, as always, that you would like me to go and see and share my thoughts on here with you. It does work. People do comment and say go and watch this, or do a book versus movie on this, and I do. It happens. So yes, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. I will be back with another bookish video for you tomorrow, and my Oscars video starting on Wednesday. So I will see you then. Bye.